Imagine breaking through concrete and steel that hasn't been touched in decades. The air that hits your face smells of rot and rust, like something that's been waiting to be found, or never meant to be. And then, in the shadows, you see it, crates, boxes, and bundles that belong to the most feared drug lord in history, Pablo Escobar. For years, people thought these vaults were just rumors, myths whispered by locals. But one of them was real. And what was hidden inside? Well, it wasn't just money. What they uncovered was darker, stranger, and far more dangerous than anyone expected. So here's the thing about Pablo Escobar, right? The guy didn't just have money, he had so much cash that he literally couldn't spend it fast enough. We're talking about a man who was making $420 million a week at his peak. Yeah, you heard that right, per week. Now, when you've got that kind of money flowing in, you don't exactly trust banks, you know? So Escobar did what any paranoid drug lord would do, he buried it. All across Colombia, in the countryside, under abandoned haciendas, in the middle of nowhere. Local farmers have been finding rotting bundles of cash for decades, just randomly digging up what used to be someone's life savings. But here's where it gets interesting. The locals, they'd whisper about something bigger. Not just buried suitcases or duffel bags, but actual vaults. Concrete fortresses built underground, filled with treasures that would make a pharaoh jealous. Most people thought it was just folklore, you know? Stories that get bigger every time they're told. Until one day, after years of searching and months of grueling digging, a team of treasure hunters broke through something that changed the story forever. Alright, so picture this. You're in the middle of Colombian wilderness, sweat dripping down your face, and you've been drilling through what feels like the world's thickest concrete for days. This wasn't some Hollywood movie moment, this was dirty, exhausting work. The kind that makes your hands bleed and your back scream. The team had been following rumors, old maps, and testimonies from former Escobar associates for months. Most leads went nowhere. But this one felt different. They were drilling in what used to be one of Escobar's safe houses, a place that had been abandoned since his death in 1993. And then, after what felt like forever, they broke through. The drill bit suddenly gave way, and there was this hollow sound that echoed back up. The air that came up from below, man, it was thick and stale, like opening a tomb that had been sealed for 30 years. When they finally cleared enough debris to get flashlights down there, what they saw made their hearts stop. Because this wasn't just some buried cache, this was a full-blown underground chamber. And it was packed. Now here's where things get wild. The first thing they noticed wasn't the smell or the darkness, it was the sheer volume of stuff down there. We're talking about a room the size of a small warehouse, and every inch was filled with something. The money alone was staggering. Bundles upon bundles of cash, some so old and damp that they've literally fused together into these weird, moldy blocks. US dollars, Colombian pesos, and currencies from countries most people can't even pronounce. Some estimates put the cash alone at over $50 million, though a lot of it was too damaged to ever spend. But that was just the beginning. There were gold bars stacked like bricks, jewelry spilling out of velvet bags, watches that cost more than most people's houses. Emeralds the size of golf balls, just sitting there like they were worthless rocks. You'd think that would be the story, right? Drug lord buries fortune, fortune gets found, end of story. But no, that's when things started getting really strange. Because just when the team thought they were staring at the world's most expensive treasure hunt, they found something that was far more dangerous than gold. Papers. Lots of them. We're talking about ledgers with names, dates, and amounts that could still destroy political careers today. Coded notebooks that detailed bribes to judges, politicians, and police officers. Some of these people are still alive, still in power. Imagine finding evidence of corruption that could topple governments, just sitting there in a moldy vault. But it wasn't just business records. There were personal letters too. Letters to his family, to his children, letters that showed a side of Escobar most people never knew existed. This guy, this monster who killed thousands of people, writing tender notes to his daughter about her first day of school. It's honestly kind of heartbreaking. And then there were the photographs. Family photos, sure, but also pictures with politicians, celebrities, people you'd never expect to see shaking hands with a drug lord. Photos that could rewrite history books if they ever saw daylight. But the vault wasn't finished giving up its secrets. What came next blurred the line between myth and nightmare. Okay, so you know how some people collect stamps or coins? Well, Pablo Escobar collected ways to kill people. And he kept the good stuff in this vault. There were AK-47s that looked like they'd never been fired, pistols with gold plating and Escobar's initials engraved on the handles, and shotguns that probably cost more than most people's cars. But it wasn't just the quantity, it was the quality. These weren't street weapons, these were collector's items. Works of art designed to end lives. The most disturbing piece was this ornate dagger, encrusted with emeralds and diamonds, with PE carved into the blade. The team found it in a special case, like it was some kind of ceremonial object. You have to wonder, what was this thing used for? And why did Escobar consider it important enough to preserve? But here's what really got to the team. Mixed in with all the weapons were personal items. A child's stuffed animal. A wedding ring. A pair of reading glasses. It's like Escobar couldn't decide if he was building a treasure vault or a time capsule. And as they kept exploring, they realized this wasn't just a place where Escobar stored his wealth. This was a place where he stored his fears. You know what's crazy? The more they explored this vault, the more it became clear that this wasn't really about money at all. This was about control, about fear, about a man who trusted absolutely no one. There were files on everyone. His own men, his family, his enemies, his friends. Detailed reports on their habits, their weaknesses, their secrets. Escobar had been documenting everything, watching everyone, preparing for betrayal from every possible angle. One file they found was just photos of his own house, taken from different angles at different times of day. Like he was studying his own property, looking for weaknesses, planning escape routes. The level of paranoia was off the charts. But the most chilling discovery was a series of handwritten notes, in Escobar's own writing, detailing escape plans. Not just for himself, but for his money, his family, his legacy. He'd planned for every possible scenario, except maybe the one where someone would actually find this vault. And that's when it hit the team. This wasn't a vault of treasure. This was a vault of fear. Now here's where this story gets really complicated, because mixed in with all the violence and paranoia, they found something else entirely. Evidence of a man who, despite everything, genuinely loved his family. There were birthday cards from his children, drawings his daughter had made for him, report cards he'd kept like any proud father. Home videos of family barbecues, Christmas mornings, normal moments that could have been from anyone's life. Except this was the life of one of history's most notorious criminals. The team found a journal where Escobar wrote about his fears, not for his empire or his money, but for his children's future. He worried about their education, about whether they'd be safe after he was gone, about whether they'd remember him as a father or as a monster. It's honestly hard to process. This guy ordered the deaths of thousands of people, but he also saved every single Mother's Day card his kids ever gave him. How do you reconcile that? How do you make sense of a human being who could be so tender and so brutal at the same time? And that's when you realize, this vault wasn't just preserving Escobar's wealth or his weapons. It was preserving his contradictions. So after weeks of cataloging everything they found, the team finally understood what they were really looking at. This wasn't just Pablo Escobar's emergency stash. This was his attempt at immortality. Every item in that vault told a story. The money represented his power. The weapons represented his control. The documents represented his paranoia. But the personal items, the family photos, the love letters to his wife, that represented his humanity. Escobar knew he was going to die. He knew his empire would crumble. but he also knew that whoever found this vault would find all of him, the monster and the man. And in a weird way, that was his final victory. Because here we are, 30 years after his death, still talking about him. Still trying to understand him. Still fascinated by the contradictions of a man who could murder judges in the morning and help his son with homework in the evening. The vault has since been sealed by Colombian authorities. Most of the money was too damaged to be of any value. The weapons were destroyed. The documents were classified. But the story lives on. What was found inside Pablo Escobar's secret vault wasn't just gold, or money, or weapons. It was the story of a man who ruled with fear and buried his life in concrete, hoping it would outlast him. And in a way, it did. Every time someone tells this story, every time someone wonders about the man behind the legend, Escobar wins a little bit. Because that's exactly what he wanted, to be remembered. Not just as a criminal, but as a human being with all the complexities that comes with. The vault is empty now, but the questions it raised will probably never be answered. How many more are out there? What other secrets did Escobar take to his grave? And maybe most importantly, what does it say about us that we're still so fascinated by the life of a man who caused so much pain? If this story opened your eyes to the complexity of one of history's most notorious figures, make sure to like this video and subscribe for more incredible true stories. Leave a comment below and let me know what you think was the most shocking discovery in Escobar's vault. Thanks for watching, and remember, sometimes the most interesting stories are buried beneath layers of concrete and years of secrets, just waiting for someone brave enough to dig them up.